Beautiful shrine. Okay. Oh, and you can smell the incense too. Very neat. All right, let's go in. This is a statue I was talking about the other day. Huge statue. And you can see here that there's incense burning. You know what it smells like? If you've ever gone to get a Christmas tree and they have bonfires at the Christmas tree lot, that's what it smells like. These must be pine scented, but very good smell. Here's another statue, more incense. Oh, little dog, little dog. This place definitely has a different aura during the day than it does at nighttime. Lots of incense here. This guy spooked me out the other day as well. Very spooky. In the middle of the night, definitely spooky. Oh, they've got big graves over here. How old is this place? 1921. Here, I'll zoom up on that and you guys can pause it if you want. All right. Yeah, that statue, huge statue, huge statue. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're gonna take a walk into the back, and I'm glad that I found this the other day. Oh, they have public bathrooms here too. Public bathrooms, that's always nice. You know, one thing that a lot of travel people say about Japan is that they don't have trash cans out in public, and that's so not true at all, because basically every vending machine has a little trash can beside it. Oh, there's a little kitty here. Hold on. There's a little kitty cat here. It's giving me the evil eye, though. I wonder if we can go pet it. Let's try and pet the little cat. Nope. Hi, kitty. Oh, I want to pet you. Don't run away. Oh, it's having none of it. Come here. Come here, I want to pet you. Come on. Don't be scared. Oh, he's telling me to fuck off. All right, so here is the graveyard area. Man, the graves in Japan are very, very beautiful, and they must be very expensive as well, because they're not the same style of gravestone that we have back in North America, at least for like commoners. Commoners usually just have like a more simple gravestone like this, whereas a lot of these gravestones are huge, and they're just made of like pure marble, right? So very crazy. Let's take a walk. What I like to do while I'm in the graveyards here is a lot of these graveyards have these, I don't know if they're candle holders. No, they're for flowers. But a lot of them have fallen over. So I like to maintain them, you know. If I'm going to make content in a graveyard, then I want to at least, you know, make it nicer than when I came in. Either way, this place is huge, and this is right in the middle of the city. Yeah, very big. Let me flip the camera around and we'll get a better look. You can tell some of these are very old, like this one here. Or that one over there. Very old. You know, when I'm in a graveyard, I kind of wonder, where am I going to be buried? You know what I mean? Oh, like, for example, like this. I like to fix these kind of things. There we go. Yeah, I always wonder, you know, where am I going to be buried? Back at home, where I live, where my mother is buried, where my grandmother is buried, where everyone like that is buried, I always thought that maybe I would be buried there. However, my grandmother bought a plot of land and in the graveyard, so her entire family could be buried there. So she's there, my mom's there, my uncle is there, and whenever my other uncle and aunt pass away, they'll also be buried there. However, there's not a spot for my sister and I, you know? And then I always wonder, like, where am I gonna end up? Where am I gonna end up? Am I going to, you know, marry my girlfriend, end up living in Japan, and be buried here? I don't know. I always thought for a long time that I might be buried in Germany, because my family is from Germany, and I don't know, I always thought that maybe I'll end up being buried in Germany. I don't know. But it's a very strange thing to think about. Look how big this graveyard is. It's very beautiful though. These graves, like, look how big this grave is. And it's all marble. It's all marble. This must have cost a fortune. And how do new people get buried here? You know? Like, getting construction equipment in here because people don't dig it by hand anymore. It's not the 1700s. They use backhoes and stuff. But in this case, like, it's so densely populated, how would a new person be buried here? I don't know. I really do enjoy graveyards, though. I don't understand, well, I guess I kind of understand why people can get kind of creeped out by graveyards, but to me, it's always been a place of peace, you know, a place of rest, because I mean, essentially that's what it is, right? It's people's final resting place. So I've never really looked at it as like a negative thing. I've never really looked at it like it's haunted or anything like that. Because if you think about hauntings, right? When you go to the hospital, nobody really considers that a hospital is usually the place where people die the most, you know? People didn't die in graveyards. Like, if you're somebody who believes in hauntings and stuff like that, forgive me if I'm wrong, but don't you believe that the place is haunted where the person was killed or where the person died? Because most people don't die in graveyards. Most people die in hospitals, places like that. So, if anything, a graveyard should be one of the least haunted places. Oh, gee, that's a big crow. That was a freaking huge crow. Good Lord. But yeah, I've always loved graveyards. When I was young, my mom and I would take our dogs for a walk, obviously. And our favorite place to go was to the graveyard to take them for a walk, because the graveyard, my hometown, well, not my hometown, but the town where I live, is it's very beautiful, you know, and there's people that have been buried there from, I think the earliest that I've ever seen was like 1700, which is pretty gnarly considering that Canada is only, what, 1867 was when Canada was, you know, officially formed into Canada. So there's people in that graveyard that have been buried there for longer than Canada has existed. As a matter of fact, something that's a little neat is the town that I live in was founded 10 years before Canada existed as Canada, you know what I mean? And that always kind of blows my mind. Keep in mind, Canada is very new, you know, it's a very new country. Even though it's the second largest country in the world, it's a very new country. We only became like an official country in 1867. So not even 200 years old. So the fact that our town was around before Canada was even conceived is very strange to me. But then again, when you're in a place like this, when you're in a place like Japan, or if you're in a place like Europe, basically anywhere other than North America, everything is so much older, you know? I mean, Japan only, forgive me if I'm wrong because I don't know the exact dates, but Japan only started like associating with the rest of the world in the late 1800s. So before that, Japan was 100% a self-sustaining, no immigration country for tens of thousands of years. And that just blows my mind. Like, how can a country, I could understand if they did that up until like the 1600s or the 1700s even, but for an entire country to not have any outside influence whatsoever up until the late 1800s is just mind-blowing to me. And it shows you how, one of the reasons why Japan is so strange to a lot of people, you know? One of the reasons why Japan is so strange to a lot of people is because Japan really lived on its own for tens of thousands of years before it had any kind of outside influence from Europe, from the rest of the world. So that's why Japan's so strange, you know? Because they just did their own thing for so long. I can admit, though, there are some things here in Japan that are very bizarre. Very bizarre. Look at this nice area. Let's step up here and see what it's all about. Yeah, there's some super strange things about Japan that are bizarre. If you are somebody who is interested in horror in any way, in any form, you know, Japan has some amazing horror. Also, if you are someone who likes cryptids, if you like cryptozoology, the study of animals and, you know, phenomenon that aren't confirmed to exist, you know, things like Bigfoot and Mothman and Goat Squatch and stuff like that, you know, Japan has some very bizarre cryptids. For example, they have something called a kappa, and a kappa, you would be very surprised because it's influenced a lot of things. For example, the Koopa Troopas from Mario are named after them. So what a kappa is, here, I'll put up a picture of what a kappa is right here. So what a kappa is it's essentially like a half turtle, half man, but they're evil, right? And they have an indented head. So their head, well, you guys know what indented means. So their head goes like this, and in the top of their head, they have a little puddle of water. And they have to make sure they don't, you know, pour that puddle out, kind of like Charmander's tail. how Charmander has to keep his tail lit on fire. A kappa has to keep the water in its head. But what it does is it essentially hangs out in little streams and little lakes and stuff like that. And then it emerges and it drags children into the water and kills them. So ridiculous. And then there's another Japanese cryptid. I forget the name of it. I'll put a picture of it right here. You know, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. One more time. Let's look at that picture. It's terrifying. Apparently, there was Japanese fishermen in, I think it was off the coast of New Zealand. And before they set sail, they saw this giant creature come up from the water and stare at them. And it didn't do anything. It just stared at them. And before they went on their adventure. But look at this thing. Look how terrifying it is. Can you imagine you're about to set sail? It's the 1800s. You're on like a wooden and iron boat. And then this thing starts staring at you. Good Lord. But yeah, if you are somebody who's into Japanese cryptids and stuff, what I'll do is I'll leave a link to a video from this girl. I forget what her name is, but she goes over some of the most terrifying Japanese cryptids. I'll leave a link to her video in the description. But there's some really cool stuff. There's some really cool stuff. All right, so guys, what do you think of this graveyard? What do you think of this graveyard? It's pretty beautiful, actually. I like this little tree here. Very beautiful. I just want to look around a little bit longer and see if I can find anything that's out of place. Another thing that I'll be doing is I will be bringing some of the dirt home. I have a friend named Ross. Like, look how cool this is. There's a beer here. There's a beer here, I'm guessing as an offering to whoever this was. That's very cool. That's very cool. You know, oh, this one looks like it's dropped. Yep. Yes. So, guys, if you are going to come into the Japanese graveyards, be respectful and try and clean up a little bit. If you see stuff that's fallen off of the graves and stuff, pick it up and put it back on there. Yeah, I love it here. I love it here. One thing that makes me sad is I'm not going to be in Japan for that much longer. I've only got about a month left on my trip, and that makes me really sad because my girlfriend, God bless her, her company is starting to like branch off into other countries other than in Japan. And if she decides to go and work in a new country, well, like with her company, you know, she'll get like a huge pay raise, and that's great. You know, I always support her no matter where she wants to work, as long as, you know, that's what she wants, and as long as that's what makes her happy, and as long as she thinks that's best for her career and stuff, I totally support that. However, it looks like she won't be living in Japan anymore, and that kind of makes me sad because I really do love it here. I absolutely love it here. I find more comfort living in Japan than I do back in Canada. Not necessarily anything bad about Canada, but politically Canada's not doing so well right now. We're also going through a very hard time with inflation right now, especially with food. It's crazy. Over the last 3 or 4 years, it's just gone insane when it comes to inflation. As a matter of fact, as I'm making this video right now, there's a Canada-wide boycott on a company called Loblaws, and Loblaws essentially controls over 50% of the grocery stores in Canada. So right now, because they've been raising their prices so dramatically, a lot of people are boycotting the entire company. And that means boycotting a lot of different grocery stores, a lot of them. For example, a gallon of milk back maybe 5 years ago was between $4 and $5, and now it's like $10. Same thing with eggs. You could get 12 like extra large eggs for about $3 back then, and now it's $9. And one of the worst things that's gone up is meat. You know, for example, if I wanted to get a beautiful A5 Wagyu steak here in Japan, the top of the line, best beef that you can buy, I would be spending about, let's say for an 8-ounce steak, I would be spending about $20 here in Japan. And that exact same steak back home easily would be $100 for a single steak. Even if we're just talking about like AAA Angus, which is like the most common, like expensive steak back home, for the same thing that I could get here, I could probably get like a 16-ounce AAA Angus steak here in Japan for about maybe $9. And we're talking a huge steak, easily big enough for me to cut in half and have a good meal with my girlfriend and I. So 2 people eating it. The same steak back at home is about $30. So it's really rough. It's really rough. It's gotten to the point where, like back when I'm in Canada, I'm on disability, right? I'm on disability, so I get a certain amount of money from the government to help me live, because my anxiety, because my depression, because of my PTSD. And I know that sounds very weak, you know, but these things absolutely limit my ability to work, you know, a consecutive 40-hour week all the time, because I just can't handle it mentally. And so I get help from the government, but I'm also, I also use a food bank, right? So when I use the food bank, I get 2 things. I get basically food stamps, and they're not like in America where, I don't know how it works in America, but I essentially get like gift cards for grocery stores. And what I do is I get all of my non-perishables and stuff from the food bank, right? Like rice, pasta, anything that's in a jar or in a can or stuff like that. I get that all from the food bank. But I need fresh meat, you know, I need fresh meat. And when you're at the food bank, they only give you 2 pieces of fresh meat. It's not fresh, it's frozen. And it's the kind of meat that grocery stores can't sell that well, so they're donated instead. Things like chicken thighs, things like not the greatest stuff, you know, not stewing beef is a big one. But what I have to do essentially is I use the food bank for non-perishables, and then I get about $100 worth of food grocery store gift cards per month. And what I do is I just buy fresh meat with it. I usually buy chicken with it, and I usually buy steak with it. And I don't get the most expensive steak whatsoever, but even with that help, with that $100, I can only afford maybe 3 steaks and 2 chickens. You know, that's crazy. That's crazy to think that $100 can only get you 3 steaks and 2 chickens, which is essentially maybe a week and a half worth of fresh meat. So it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. What I'm trying to say is being in Canada is very frustrating right now. And when I'm here in Japan, I can actually afford groceries. I can actually afford a lot of these things that are just out of reach for me in Canada. Another thing, like for example, you guys have seen the view that I have. I live in Tokyo when I'm here. I live in Tokyo, and I have not a huge apartment by any means. My apartment is essentially the size of like a nice hotel room. However, the view is beautiful. I'm right downtown, and my rent here is half of the price that my rent is back home. And that's nuts. That is insane to think about, because I don't actually live in Toronto. I live in the Greater Toronto area, which is a pretty big surrounding area of Toronto. But I live about 45 minutes to 1 hour away from Toronto. And what I'm trying to say is I live in like a small town, right? I don't live in the city core where you would expect to pay a lot of money for rent. I don't do that. And my rent is huge. So, I don't know. I like it here more. I like it here more. Well, guys, that was the tour of this beautiful, beautiful area. I'm gonna head back to my apartment and do a live stream and just relax for a little bit. I think I'll stop by a Japanese grocery store, as we said, and pick up some stuff. And yeah, it'll be really nice. Either way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really, really, really appreciate it. Tonight.
Thank you for watching Life of Kai. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This act is very human.